Well, good afternoon from the front of my car. It's a funny idea, the idea of having a car. I need a vessel for my vessel, just so I can cover more ground in time and space and convince myself that I'm going somewhere and doing something. It's a funny idea when actually nothing is happening at all. The idea of what's being presented on the external realm, on the outer world, is nothing but symbolic of an idea I have about myself as being a temporal entity in time and space, which is false, and revealed in its falsity through an experience of the truth of myself, my true self, outside of the parameters of time and space entirely. But whilst time and space still seems to exist, whether you want to believe in it or not, and I do believe in it. I believe in it, and I know that it's not true at the same time. Like Jesus says in the Course, it's unwise to not believe in the particulars of the dream whilst you're still seeming to be dreaming it, because that's a particularly unuseful version of denial, even though you're encouraged to deny the denial, but not to deny that you're in denial. And that shows up as being applicable in the moments that your peace of mind is disturbed. It's the same principle really as don't judge the form, apply the principle, which is atonement. I'm accepting atonement for myself. The reason that I really wanted to make this video was in response to a comment I had by one of our dear brothers, on my last video. Can't remember his name offhand now. Anyway, we had a little bit of a back and forth. You'll find it there if you're interested. And I'm not sure if the presentation, what was being presented on his behalf to me for my own atonement, was supposed to be humorous or funny or tongue-in-cheek or any of that sort of stuff. So I just take everything as verbatim and as it seems to be, without trying to analyse it too much, because I'm really not good at analysing anything anymore. And I tend to look at things very vertically, or pretty much vertically, notwithstanding the moments that it's given me to be useful within the framework of time and space, as the idea, what Jesus says in the Course, you're asked to be helpful for those who have gone before and those who have yet to come. So my own witnessing and my own truth speaking, let's say, in time and space as a record and being on the record, I can only hope to be helpful with, so that's my whole purpose, function and everything else, is to be helpful and to represent him who sent me. One of the ideas in being helpful is being your brother's keeper. Now, that doesn't mean that you correct your brother or anything like that, but it means you're there for your brother, and when they're going through stuff and all of that kind of thing, when you're going through healing, as you will go through your own healing, just to hold the light for them, just to stay in the knowing of the truth of who they are, which is the Christ, and not the thing seemingly going through transformation, because that's false in its entirety. Even though it's a necessary falsity, it's a reverse falsity, a reverse dream, or an anti-dream, if you like. But to simply hold your mind open in the realization that this is my brother in Christ, and this thing that seems to be crying or complaining or having a hard time of whatever it is nothing more than the kicking and the pecking at the shell of the bird that's trying to hatch inside. And of course we only see the shell, we see it starting to break, and some of us are like the Mother Teresa, and we like to try and patch the shell up at there, don't worry, everything's okay, it'll be fine, you'll get over it and whatever. And it's like, well, everything is okay. That's exactly what the okay is. is that kicking and screaming, right? It's when the face is always smiling and when everything's always happy and everything's always in limbo with a spiritual concept. That's when you want to be asking if everything's okay. Because you've got to remember, this is a journey into fear, into terror, and Tyna, funnily enough, Tyna has this week been going through, I won't tell you the particulars, but going through a very deep package of stuff that she's been struggling with and coming up against now for probably a good year and a half, 2 years, and as her brother, I've been giving a little tickle and a little poke, and because I know she's devoted and committed and she's not going to be particularly upset if I do that. Some people, on the other hand, however, are going to be like, why are you doing that to me? And still be putting the finger pointing outwards rather than on their own nose, as I like to do as well. Keep my finger on my own nose as much as possible. But in the interest of being your brother's keeper, sometimes it looks like a hug in the right time, in the right action, in the right moment. And sometimes it looks like a little push, a little nudge. And it's always that inner guidance, that guidance of the Spirit as to what that is. And you have to include in your own part that you play as the will of God, because it is. God's will is everything. Otherwise, I'm excluding myself from all things being love and being an action of love in the world. And I'll find myself offering concepts to people, like, oh, everything's just love. You don't have to worry about it or whatever. And it's like, well, if I truly knew that, I wouldn't need to offer the concept. Very nice RS BMW motorcycle. I'm a bit of a motorcycle enthusiast. As far as transport and getting around in the dream goes, the motorcycles gives you good thrills for your money. Keeps you on your toes. I don't like to become too complacent, as you can probably guess. I'm not a fan of comfort zones, and they do get hard to recognise, however, including the idea of being in a spiritual comfort zone as a identity, let's say, of a teacher of A Course in Miracles, as I seem to be playing at the moment. But this particular identity of being, let's say, Dave the teacher, or Dave the student, or Dave the whatever, I have let it go several times to find myself in a very open and peaceful, clear place with that. And then it seems to come back around because you just get used, God only gives, and you find yourself with another little assignment. And I remember my teacher, Ted, when I told him about the golden orb. And if you haven't watched that video about the golden orb, it's in my experiences playlist. And the very first time, and about that same time, Jesus said that he would now support me no matter what I do on behalf of the sonship. So it was very encouraging. But about that time, when I had that little golden orb show up and I had the experience around that golden orb, I remember my teacher, Ted, when I told him about it later, he said, oh, you probably just got an assignment. And I did. Not that I knew what he meant by that, but it's sort of all panned out later, things occurring that you would never have imagined. Anyway, that's getting off the subject somewhat. But the idea of being my brother's keeper, it's a tricky one because you get it right by getting it wrong. You remember better by seeing how often you forget, and becoming more vigilant and more determined and more surrendering to the beneficence of the Spirit within you, and actually taking action on that as an idea of stepping back and getting the hell out of the way and listening for that tiny, calm, small inner voice, perhaps, that is the voice of certainty and the voice of Spirit that quite often will surprise you with what you hear. More often than not, actually, I think. So I have, and this happens quite a bit, as your brothers, and in the idea of brother's keeper again, and walking together on the road to truth, It's very easy once you pass one of your own personal ring pass knots, like Tina's going through one right now. Once she gets past it completely and on the other side of it, that process of healing becomes entrenched in the psyche. It is so profound. It becomes entrenched in the psyche, not as something to become ritualized as an idea of this is how healing ought to look, but as something that goes into her own personal and for me, my own personal toolbox of references, which can safely be used because they are divine, for any situation or event that reflects a similar energetic in the future being presented by those that might show up for healing in that way. And we're pretty basic, right? So as human beings, we're pretty basic. We all sort of put our pants on the same way. And if we tell each other a story about something, no matter what country we come from, we can all manifest a basic comprehension of it. There's none of us that are particularly like Einstein or Stephen Hawking, talking in riddles about the universe. Maybe me a little bit, but people often say they don't understand what I'm on about. But you're ready for it when you're ready for it, I guess. So one of the things that happens, and I can't remember who it was wrote me the comments, but the comments were presented in a way that I would see were a defense. Okay, a defense against hearing whatever it was that was triggering the necessity to write the comment in the first place. Okay. Now, in my willingness to be helpful, I can only continue to assert the truth, my truth, based on the experience I've had. And if that's helpful, then so be it. If it's not, then so be it as well. The vacancy or the emptiness or the what would you call it, the truing up of whatever it is in my brother's mind that is presenting that opportunity will have to come around another way and be presented in another way. And I'm unconcerned about that. If I'm concerned about the results of my teaching or my offering or whatever it is, then it's a false teaching and a false offering, because I have to be 100% certain that what I'm offering comes from Spirit, in which no concern about that can be, it can either be accepted or rejected, and I'm unconcerned either way. That's not up to me. It's just up to me to deliver the message, however that's meant to look. So, as you go through stages of transformation, you're working out your own salvation by seeing that you're not getting it right, basically. By seeing that you're not truing up to something, and you'll recognize it because it'll come around again. It'll show up again, and you'll find that, oh, look at me defending myself against something. Look at me commenting on what can only be love. Look at me wanting to comment on what can only be the will of God being presented to me in this way. If I think I need then to comment on it or correct it or whatever, then it's not that the will of God is not being presented in perfection, but only that I'm not seeing it in perfection. And that's okay, because when I read the comments personally, I always take everything personally. I look at it and like, what is this? And I always ask within myself, what is this? What's being said here? Because one thing I've learned in my years of transformation is that as everything gets converted, quite often a lot of stuff gets taken from you that's no longer useful. And one of those things that I've realized that's been taken from me is a sense of humor, a human sense of humor, because human beings tend to use humor to pad out discomfort or to make better sadness and all of that sort of thing, and a lot of people will tell you that they love jokes and things because it makes life better. Well, I don't have that anymore because I don't have a better and worse. I don't have a sense of humor in that same way. My sense of humor, people would probably say it's quite dark, ironically dark now, because I see death as kind of funny. right? Death is funny to me. It's a weird idea, and all of that sort of thing. And when I tell people I'm looking forward to transiting from this flesh and exiting the dream and all, they look at me like weird, like, aren't you afraid? You know, and some people just walk away from me. Things like that. So I've had that happen. Some people are terrified of death, and that's the third obstacle to peace, is the fear of death. And you have to confront it. Once you confront it and go beyond it, I mean, it's really nothing. It's like I always say, it's like a rubber skeleton in a ghost train, you know. And at first, when you go to look at it and confront it, you put your hand over eyes because you know it's supposed to be scary in there. You don't want to look at it. And once you sort of open your fingers and look at the skeleton in the ghost train, you realise it's just a rubber skeleton. You laugh at yourself for being so silly, and the next time you go around, there it is again. Oh, there's that rubber skeleton. They should put something new there because I'm not scared of that anymore, right? And that's time and space for you, right? It's all just rubber skeletons. But the meaning that I want to give it, the meaning I initially give everything until I've confronted it, until I've confronted that fear around it, is terrifying, right? The idea of confronting my actual idea or actual sense of separation from God, where it seems to be in my own mind, as Annie commented on my photobomb picture on Facebook. She said that's not particularly inspiring of the sheer lunacy and terror, or whatever it was, maniacal terror, which she has experienced in facing the void, or facing that place where separation seems to have occurred in the mind. For me, it was instantaneous. It happened through the dark night of the soul. I didn't really have a choice about it. I was just suicidal and totally suicidal, and knew that was my option at that time, other than either that or prayer. So you learn that you doubt God's will partly by becoming vigilant. Well, as you become vigilant for the kingdom of heaven, as you become vigilant for your own sense of inner peace, you become also simultaneously vigilant for anything, even on a spiritual level, right? Because level confusion is a big thing in spiritual progress, confusing the levels, and I don't want to get into that particularly, but in the idea of transformation as well, right? So as you go through your own particulars, things get snipped out, healed, whatever you want to call it, forgiven, and you just find yourself free of the need to participate on the temporal level with those particular icons of denial. Everything in time and space being a particular icon of denial, even your belief in God, even your belief in Jesus. The only thing that is not an icon of denial is the moment you remember your Father. And I don't want everybody to suddenly start to feel bad about themselves for that. I mean, it's a good thing to know it, right? Let's get it out of the way. It's like, oh shit, we're all in denial, right? It's not true, but that's where we seem to find ourselves. So let's play the game for a second, apply some new ideas and some new thinking to it, and see if we can't change the storyline. And that's exactly what happens. So, and because I mentioned level confusion, I guess I'll talk a little bit about it. In regards to teaching this and offering this, Jesus asks very specifically to join the Great Crusade, to join the movement, if you like, or the awakening, in a way where he can direct you through the Spirit of love to be of maximal use within the dream, right? Now, you could say, well, everything's of maximal use within the dream because everything's just God, which is the vibration I got from this particular comment that was put forth to me on my last video. And yes, that's true. But Jesus is asking us to collapse time. Okay? This is a whole new technology. It's also just God, but it's a higher frequency of God in a higher paradigm of awareness, where you don't have to walk around defending yourself with the idea that everything's just God, and you can actually put all that kind of stuff aside and begin to participate in something that not only will it be revealed to you personally, but it will be obvious to you of your participation in it by your witnessing to it. Right? So one of the, and this is a very slow time reference, one of the references that I have for that is when I talk to guys who've had a lot of Eastern traditional, what would you call it, Vedantic kind of background, and you realise how slow, what would you call it, how dense their spiritual signature is, right? It's the same thing as if you were to meet a being from, let's say, the ninth dimension, and they would have all these incredible, to me and to you, they would be incredible powers or incredible telepathy and invisibility and instantaneous movement across the spheres and things like that. And we would look at that and go, wow, right? When I have interactions with guys that have a more Vedantic feel on things, and I'm not saying it's not God, right? Don't try not to find any reason to defend yourself when I say this, because a lot of people do get defensive because of the amount of effort and energy they've put into progressing where they're at with things so far, even if it is sluggish and slow, right? And when I present them with, let's say, if you were to watch the last 30 minutes of our last Zoom meeting where we did the 20-minute book reading together, and you see the energy that's going on in those readings, when I present those sort of guys with that kind of technology, that kind of collaborative coming together in the idea of a joining in that total purification that transcends the sum of the parts, right? They're usually blown away. Now, Jesus calls it the celestial speed up, right? It's not that spirituality hasn't been around for thousands of years, and it's a true thing that there are technical associations in the world, types of associations in the world, people in the world that love the idea of ancient teachings and ancient learnings, because in our fast-paced, hypocritical, dualistic world, they seem to have a sense of not only profundity, but romanticism and dependability about them. And of course they do, right? All pathways to God will work because of their purpose. But Jesus says, let's join in the celestial speed up, right? Let's kick this up a notch, right? It's been 2,000 years since his resurrection. It's been 2,500 years since Buddha, right? Things are moving. Things are really kicking along. When you begin to say yes to the portal or to the availability of light that's being presented to you in your own personal transition through saying yes to that celestial speed up, you'll be absolutely flabbergasted how quickly things proceed and how snappy your mind becomes in converting all that dark light, all that dense energy. Right? I know all my talking about it is nothing, but for a while, because vision is still so dim, we need words to communicate. But when I open my mind like that, I'm communicating with every other person simultaneously around the entire universe and the universes of universes that has learned how to open their mind like that. Right? Everybody benefits from it. When you're doing the workbook lessons of A Course in Miracles, I just got a response. That was pretty cool. When you're doing the workbook lessons of A Course in Miracles, and you're about 3 months in, 100 days in, whatever, and you've been doing it diligently. It's like you've fucked the world. I'm just doing these lessons. I'm not going to work for 3 months or a year I'm just going to do this. And you totally commit to it, and you do it perfectly. You undergo all these shifts in consciousness. Most people, it's like you have to go to some kind of healing center for that to, like I did, for that to be able to occur. And I wish I knew of some. If you Google up David Hoffmeister, try not to become involved in the identity, but he's been incredibly beneficial to the realm, setting up these little monastic sort of centers where people can go. And if you have the opportunity to do that, I would incredibly advise, definitely advise, whatever. Even if you got any money, just don't have any money, just turn up, knock on the door and tell them I sent you. I mean, hey, everything's an opportunity to give and receive, so, but the speed up is incredible. All right, through my own efforts as, let's say, the entity of Dave, the avatar of Dave, like when Jesus says in the Course, I'm asking you to help bring your brothers to the place where the journey ends. Right? Now, the journey is already over in one sense, right? In a certain sense, there really is no journey, right? This moment is the journey. This moment is the opportunity. It's always here and now where the journey ends. But bringing each other and reminding each other and being each other's keeper, to train the mind to stay in the here and now in this moment, not in a consciously focal way, but in a meditatively focal way. It's like I feel very comfortable. I've had at least half a dozen brothers that I've worked with intensely over a multiple year period each one, some of them collaboratively, where they can now also begin to open their minds for themselves and have moments of true light communication with the celestial realms, with the miracle level in their own mind, which is connected to all things. That happens at will, right? That's true communication, true light communication. There are no words in that place. It's a very beautiful sort of occurrence. What would you call it? I don't even know how to talk about it, but the partnership with being useful through the offering of this technology, initially through words, and being able to realize within yourself that you've offered as much as you can of your teaching as to make yourself redundant to that brother. It's like teaching a baby bird everything they need, and then they go and fly and they don't need you anymore. It's like it's beautiful. It's just perfect. And however that pans out around the world, it pans out, but it's like it's not up for me to be concerned about it. It's just for me to do my job, which is partly why I make these videos, to give you as much of the technology of my own awareness of practice, process, principles, all of that sort of stuff, so that things begin to go click, click, click in your own mind. And I often have people on these videos saying, man, I really get it now. I've been reading this book for years. I started watching your videos and now it's all starting to make sense. And sometimes that's all it takes, is watching a couple of videos, and then it starts to make sense. But as soon as as you say it, starting to make sense, that's ego trying to make sense of something that has no sense about it whatsoever anyway, right? So just be careful you don't fall into that trap. There's not something that suddenly makes sense. I'm always stepping into the unknown, the unremembered, the unaware, the new moment, without any kind of idea of being able to make sense of it, right? I'm just going to let everything be miraculous. And that's where being miracle-minded and learning to be miracle-minded really comes into this, because, that's what you're being asked to do. Learn to become miracle-minded. Miracle-minded, miracle-minded. Say it 1,000 times to yourself today in front of the mirror. Miracle-minded. at about the 100th repetition, you'll start to get a sense of it. Right? That's how dense the mind fog can be and usually is when you're trying to really allow yourself to integrate or to hear this message. Right? And I've by the same token, I've had many people also, and from my own experience, as I've said many times, man, I've heard this message so many times, and then all of a sudden, bam, one day, a year down the track, 2 years down the track, something will happen, the light bulb goes on, and you realise you actually heard it. You realise that it went in, it got in past the mind fog. And it's always going to take a miracle. Right? It's always going to take a miracle. If you're not familiar with the principles of miracles, they're right in the very front of the book, in front of the book, A Course in Miracles. Read those, learn them, overlearn them if you have to. There's 50 of them. We've got a Zoom meeting on this Monday, which for me is tomorrow. For you guys in America, it's probably your Sunday, I think. It's my Sunday here today. I think we're ahead of you guys about 15 hours or something. I'll upload this video. I think that's it for today, but I'll upload this video. I've got to pull in soon and have a drink or something. Too much flapping my gums. Remember, keep it real. Keep it like simple. Keep it real. Don't try to master being spiritual. Master the principle, which is defenselessness. Resist not evil. Period. That's all Jesus ever taught. Resist not evil. Right? Be defenselessness and let God get you through the particulars of your own shit fights on earth, if that makes sense. All right, I love you. Peace.